Well, welcome everybody. I'm so glad that we're all able to come together all over the world. We have representatives from, I think, every time zone in the country, and we even have people overseas. We've got Vinny in Okinawa, Japan. I am Tracy Steele. I'm the Chief Operating Officer for the Council for Military Spouse Clubs. And today we have our council chats on Talking Shop, all about gift and thrift shops. Instead of presenting this as kind of a panel of experts, we're really coming together because a lot of us have experience with thrift and gift shops. So we're kind of coming together, meeting of the minds, a discussion. We brought in some people who've had some real great successes in different gift and thrift shops. So we're going to kind of throw out some questions and just have a really good discussion. We'd love for this to be interactive. So feel free to throw in stuff into the chat. I think Carolyn's going to be monitoring it in the background. So yeah, we'll go from there. So I've been a military spouse for over 19 years. And I had the opportunity to be in Okinawa, Japan for 3 years from 2017 to 2020. And those 3 years I worked at the Marine Gift Shop as a volunteer. I was served on the board there as a vice president. And it was where I made some of my best friends. I think some are on this call. And it was really great. I even got to go on a buy trip to Thailand to help buy merchandise. But at the same time, on the flip side, we went through some really challenging times and had to let our operations manager go. And I really wished at that time that we had something like this, conversations where we'd bring people from all over the world together and come up with our best practices and some great advice on how things worked. So today's chat, we're bringing in those people. We're going to have thrift shop and gift shop. We're going to talk volunteer recruitment, best practices and advice. And like I said, I'd love for everybody to jump in and add any of their insights and ask questions. So I kind of want to throw it around the room to our guests that are going to be speaking. We have Vinny Toth, that's from Okinawa, Japan, representing the Marine Gift Shop there. And we have Stacy Thompson, who is representing the Bragg Gift Shop. And then Kelly Weinerth, who's also representing the Air Force Thrift Shop. And I think we're hoping we might have another thrift shop representative, but I know that a lot of people on this call are experienced in thrift shops. So how about, can I throw it over to you, Vinny, and maybe just throw a quick introduction?
Yeah, hi, my name is Vinny Toth. I'm out here in Okinawa, Japan. I have been with the Marine Gift Shop for almost 4 years now. As soon as I moved to Island, I actually hit the ground running and got a job there. Kind of worked my way up. I was originally the merchandise manager, and then shortly after, probably about 8 months, our operations manager job opened, and I ended up applying for that and getting that position, and have been running the gift shop for the last 3 years as the operations manager, which has been really awesome. Like Tracy has said, we've been through our ups and downs. I ran this place during COVID, and that was probably one of the biggest challenges ever, because we had to get reinventive, try and figure out how to, gain business without having people come into the store, how to get the shipments on Island when some countries were completely closed. So it was a lot of fun, and it's been a great experience. And that's a little bit about me.
Awesome. I'll throw it over to Kelly. You mind introducing yourself?
Sure. I'm Kelly Weinerth. I was a military spouse for 30 years. My husband retired 5 years ago. I've always been on a spouses club in all those years. And starting in 2012, I managed the gift and thrift shop in Korea. Then we went to Joint Base Lewis McChord, where I was the manager there. And I'm currently the manager at the Air Force Academy thrift shop. I went in to volunteer there and thought, I'm not doing this managing stuff anymore. And within a week, they said, will you be manager? So here I am 4.5 years later. But same kind of obstacles that Vinny had with the COVID situation and trying to keep the store open, but nobody's coming in and that kind of stuff. But it all worked out in the end, and here we are. So that's a little bit about my background.
Awesome. Thank you. And Stacy?
Great. Stacy Thompson. I am a military spouse of 25 years. We are now stationed here at Benning, but I helped relocate they call Bragg Unique Boutique. They call it the Bub. It was located in an older building on post, and we kind of moved locations and change things up a little bit. And so that was an exciting time. And we did, I think the club, we had success, quite a bit of success that year. Moving locations, I think, was very helpful. But so I helped with that, and we obviously worked through the SOP, which I don't know if we'll get through that today or any of that. But so that was my experience helping with the club. I've always been active, like, with the units, or of course with the clubs, spouses clubs. And so I really enjoyed that time helping the bub. My role at the time, they called it the bub coordinator. Now they look like they've kind of broken up some of those positions to kind of spread the job, so that it's not one person taking on all of those tasks. So yeah, so I'm glad to participate. So
yeah, thank you for being here.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I'm going to start throwing out some questions, and a lot of this is conversation that we've had amongst our board, things that I'm actually really curious about, and issues that I've seen as I participated with the gift shops and thrift shops. But one question, I think, just starting with basics, is what 501c status are each of you? I know there's been a lot of, and I'm also curious if you fall underneath a spouses club, if a spouse club oversees you and runs you and governs you, or are the shops standalone entities and separate statuses? I know that we get a lot of questions about that, and I'm curious if we can have discussion about that. Maybe Stacy, I'll throw it back at you.
So, I mean, I can only speak from, and I don't believe they've changed, but we fell under the spouses club when I was there, and I think that is still how they're running everything. So, I'm sorry,
go ahead.
No, go ahead.
In your governing documents, so was it the spouses club governing documents, and then you'd have a portion of that was how the shop would be run?
Correct. Right.
Okay. And so was it all the same, or maybe I'll if you don't know the answers, that's fine.
Yeah,
I think. Okay.
Yeah, I think we'd have to go back to looking at that SOP, but we certainly followed, and that was the thing when we took over. We desperately needed an SOP, an updated SOP. So that was something we worked on that first year. And that we did through the club as well. So the club, kind of took on guiding that, and I know that clearly they've worked on it, because now they have those new positions and listed in there as well.
Okay. Vinny, can I ask you the same question, even though I sort of know the answer?
Yeah, I mean, you already know the answer. No, we are a 501c4, and we actually used to fall under a spouses club, but we actually separated in 2018 or 19, I believe. And we are now our own entity who govern our own gift shop, and do not fall under a spouses club anymore.
And so I know, to elaborate on that too, I remember when we were a 501c4, we tried to go to a 501c3 when I was there, but I think that because of the volunteer hours had to match the staffing hours or something like that. And I don't know if there's Carolyn, if you're any expert on that as well, or that there was a reason that we could not get really tight in with the 501c3 because of, whereas thrift shops, it's easier. And maybe Kelly, you have more to talk on that. Are you guys a 501c3?
So yes, we're a 501c3 because we do give out donation receipts, and that was kind of a big deal for where we are. And obviously you have to be a 501c3 to do that. We are part of the spouses club. I've been at Joint Base Lewis McChord. They were not. Vinny, I think it's beneficial to be separated. I personally think it's beneficial to be separated. We still gave to scholarship. We still did that kind of stuff. So that wasn't a problem. But our SOP, and I don't know if that was part of the question or not, but our SOP is completely separate. The operating procedures and policies are completely separate from the spouses club. And when we did, thanks to Carolyn, who told me that we could not be separate, because we do fall under the spouses club. So for all the years before that, they had their own constitution and bylaws. That can't happen if you're under the spouses club, your constitutional bylaws have to fall under theirs. So we separated our own rules within those bylaws and constitution, but our policies and procedures that the volunteers have to sign off on and the employees are completely separate from that. And we have a thrift shop advisory board, which is another board that the second vice runs. And she's the one that, she's the one that with there 4 times a year, quarterly. And we do those meetings and we come up with the policies and procedures through that board, not the spouses club board, if that makes sense.
That was going to be my next follow-on question, because I know in the Marine Gift Shop, that's what we did too. We had a separate board, which made it easy when we separated from the spouses club, because we actually already had a separate board. But I've seen in some that have just like a liaison that's with the spouses club, and there's just one person that kind of goes to the shop meetings, and there's very little oversight of the shop. I guess I'm curious as to experience on this panel and within our group here, if that's something that's common practice, and what your thoughts are on that. I mean, it sounds like, Kelly, you have a bigger advisory board that oversees the shop, so there's probably more oversight, correct?
That would, in a perfect world, yes. But unfortunately, that's not really what happens. The thrift shop liaison is a position on our board. I think it's better if the manager actually goes, because there's so much they have to table at a board meeting if the manager's not there to answer the actual questions. So the liaisons for the past 2 years have given us feedback saying it's really not, this position really doesn't do much, because the manager writes the report and the liaison kind of just reads it. So the liaison position, if they were to come and volunteer at least once a week and knew everything that was going on in the operations of the store, would be really a perfect situation. But unfortunately, that's not what always happens. So the Thrift Shop Advisory Board, again, it's run by our second vice. These are all great people that want to give, but no one really can give their time and spend the time in the thrift shop. And that's really, I think, what we need most is just to get someone. So we found the best practice for that is to get a volunteer coordinator, and the volunteer coordinator then works with the volunteers, and they tend to be there a lot more. And that person is a better person to represent at the board meetings.
And so is that volunteer coordinator a volunteer, or is it a paid position on your staff?
It's a volunteer.
And
it's the coordinator for the volunteers at the thrift shop. And that person usually is much heavier and heavily involved than a liaison would be, who really just kind of thinks they're, and they don't think that in a bad way, but their job is to show up at the board meetings and kind of read the manager's report. They should be volunteering, but that just doesn't always happen. A volunteer coordinator has to be there a lot more, because they're coordinating the volunteers. So it seems to be a better fit.
Kelly, I have a question. Is your board, are they required to be there certain hours at all a month or anything like that?
So in our bylaws, the second vice is supposed to be there a minimum of 3 hours a week, as is the thrift shop liaison. And unfortunately, that just doesn't happen, and they're volunteers. So we're kind of stuck, probably like all of you. We just can't get them to do the 3 hours, and we're open 4 days a week. So we were hoping it would be 3 hours one week, 3 hours the next week. So in a month's time, they would have had met each day of the week, because there are different volunteers each day. And then the next month they start and see the same people again each week, one time. But it's hard when you're asking a volunteer in those board positions to volunteer at the thrift shop, where it's a difficult situation. And the volunteer coordinator really kind of helped us in that situation, to getting them in there more and knowing what was going on and then representing at the board.
Gotcha. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Well, that kind of leads me to, I kind of want to get into volunteer recruitment and retention too. And because it is so important. I mean, these shops are run by volunteers, which in a segue, we'll talk about paid employees. But I know, Kelly, you've had success with volunteer recruitment. And I know, Vinny, you've adopted some titles and positions within the gift shop there that's kind of recruited volunteers. And Stacy, I'd love to hear from you too. What do you guys do to recruit volunteers, train them, retain them, and award them? Let's start. Vinny, I'd love to start with you.
Yeah, so we actually have two positions in our store now that are actually our volunteer coordinators. We have a volunteer coordinator who is our vice president, and they're actually the volunteer portion of it. And we actually have a paid staff member that kind of dual jobs it. They're my inventory manager and they're also my personnel manager. So they're making sure that they're overseeing it all, making sure all of it is good, and the volunteer coordinator is helping where they need to help out. So, they are often making sure posts are going out. Anytime that we have a new volunteer that it's coming in, they're making sure they're walking them around the store, kind of giving them the insight of what's going on, have them sign up one of our NDAs, and make sure that they're all set up for whenever they do come back in to volunteer by them, or when nobody's there, when somebody's not there, either of them, that they're feeling comfortable to jump right in. And also, a lot of our positions in our store, especially on our board, have names. So our president, obviously our president, but they're all coordinator positions. So we have like a backroom coordinator, a sales coordinator, we have a marketing coordinator, to make sure that those positions can translate back to a resume one day and not just showing that they weren't, that they were just volunteering, because, that's one thing that we often hear. So we wanted to make sure that those positions had something that they can relate back to. We also, I think we have a financial coordinator as well who goes over the financial documents every month with our accountant and everything. So we're just making sure that we're getting out there, having a few people, boots on the ground, making sure that we're talking to people all the time and inviting them in. So it's really worked out for us and really growing our volunteer network.
And so to add on to that, so where are you recruiting for volunteers, and what are the requirements to be a volunteer at the shop?
So out here in Okinawa, Facebook is king. Everything that you need to know is on Facebook. So that's one big place that we recruit at. We also do every Wednesday, we have the newcomers brief for anybody who's coming on the island. And we actually have a booth there and we're recruiting there. Anytime that any of the spouses clubs do have events, we try and see if we can get a table there. So we can go ahead and recruit from there. We have a sign up right when you walk into the store that people can sign in on an iPad if they want to be able to volunteer. We're talking about it with our customers. And then what was the other question you asked?
Just how you're recruiting and what are the requirements? So do you have to be a Marine Marine associated to be there?
Good question. We are actually, so we run off of SOFA status here, and you have to have SOFA status here on island to be able to volunteer. And you can be from any service, any rank, any branch or anything. So it's really nice that we're able to offer everybody to volunteer, even active duty. We actually just had our first active duty member in the gift shop get one of the volunteer service medal awards that they got enough hours. So that was pretty cool to be able to accomplish.
That's great. Kelly, I'm going to ask you, because I know that you've had a lot of volunteers. It sounds like you still struggle, I'm sure, like everybody, but how do you do your recruitment, and who's eligible to work at your shop, and any advice you can give?
Yeah, we actually don't struggle with volunteers. We struggle with board volunteers. So there's a little difference there. Anybody can volunteer at our shop. We do have requirements for consigning. So if they don't have an active DoD card, they cannot consign, but they still can volunteer. And we do have folks that do that. So they just have to be able to get on base, and our base is pretty easy to get on at the Air Force Academy. So that doesn't seem to hinder us in any way. We do a lot of the same things as Vinny does. We do announce it at our board meetings. I always have it in our meeting notes that we're looking for volunteers, and I have gotten volunteers that way, where they actually just see it in our minutes for the regular board. We also announce it at all of our socials. We don't have tables; it's kind of smaller, so we do not have vendor tables. But yeah, that's great if you did. But we just announce it. We find we get most of our volunteers from talking to our customers. You can usually tell. You'd be surprised at how many people want you to ask them. And I know sometimes that's uncomfortable, but it's really not, because there's so many people that come in there. They come by themselves. They're a little bit nervous sometimes, maybe they're new, you don't know. And when you say, they say they love something in the thrift shop, and you say, oh my gosh, or they say they love thrifting, you should volunteer here. And we've gotten so many volunteers that way, just because they're kind of looking, they don't want to ask, they're embarrassed. But when you ask them, that's the best way to do it. And a lot of people are nervous to ask people because they don't like the no that might come with it. But I learned a long time ago, and we kind of practice this in our thrift shop, is just going for no and say, we're going to try to get 5 no's today. And for every 5 no's, then we can go like have a muffin or something. And this way you're asking everyone, because the more no's you get, the more you get to your thing, but you might get 10 yeses in between there. And then you can't have your treat until you get 5 no's. So we kind of do that sometimes. And that seems to really work. Just ask. People want to be asked, and you'll find there's so many people that are just shy and embarrassed to say, do you need volunteers? And if you ask, they're going to come. We do Facebook as well. Friends of our regular volunteers, we usually get a lot that way. Their friends will ask them, we'll say, ask your friends if they can, we're looking for people on a Tuesday. And that helps us a lot. We do have the TVs in, like they'll have at the pharmacy. We have one in the thrift shop. They have them at the clinic. They have them all over. They're kind of MWR TVs, and we're up on there. Flyers in the shop, talking to new consigners. That's another big one. I put all their numbers in when they come to get a new number, and I'll ask them, are you interested in volunteering? Let's see. And yeah, that's pretty much the main things that we do. I like your idea, Vinny, of having a sign up sheet right when you walk in, or you use an iPad. That's fantastic. That's pretty much how we recruit for volunteers.
Awesome. Stacy, I know that,
Yeah.
I mean, do you have anything to add with?
Well, I think we did too. We did usually typically have a vendor table at our luncheons for the Spouses Club. So that was a great way to kind of display what we had in the store. And then, people usually were, if they were interested, we would always engage with people that way. I think one of the things that we had run into initially was that previously, when people were volunteering, it was just one person by themselves volunteering in the shop. And that a lot of people did not want to do that. They didn't want to be in that position by themselves. And so we always made sure that it was more than one person going forward. So we always had somebody on the BUB board. So we had several, like Vinny said, coordinators. So we had myself, what I was considered a coordinator. I had a consignor coordinator, somebody that was handling all the consignments. They now have an online store. So they have this online coordinator. They have the volunteer coordinator. So there was always one other board member with the volunteers. And I think that helped people feel more comfortable, because if you're new to it or you're not really sure, it's always helpful to have somebody there that you can lean on and ask questions of. So.
I agree. And I think people look to do it for a social reason anyway.
Absolutely.
You want to make friends that way. Yeah.
Right.
I see Angie. Is that Angie Edwards out there?
Good. Yes, it's me. I'm here.
So Angie is also representing thrift shops. Do you have any words of wisdom or ideas for volunteer recruitment, things that you've had experience with?
Just kind of going off of what some of the others have said. Yes, it is hard having volunteers from the board. That has been very, very difficult. And I've worked there for 11 years, and it hasn't changed. So that's one of the most difficult parts, I think. Most of the volunteers that we get also come from both Facebook and customers. And then we give volunteers incentives, and we do have that posted in the store, like walking in. We do a lot of Facebook Live videos, or that's something that we always touch on, especially how to donate, and how to become a volunteer, and the different incentives that you can get for being a volunteer, because we used to at one time be open to consignments for everyone, and we no longer are. And that not only helped with our income, so to speak, but it also helped add that added benefit to volunteers because they can consign. So it's something a little special that they get versus, not getting any sort of benefit, if that makes sense.
That's great. So what other incentives? Maybe we'll go around that, because it is like you can get that volunteer to come in at first, but then how do you get them to stay? What incentives do you offer?
Okay, so they get 10% off their purchase on the day that they volunteer. They can also consign 10 items every day that they volunteer their 2 hours as well. And then if we have any specials or we have any sales, they're the first people to know. And they will also be able to sometimes shop those sales early before the public. So there's several little different things there. And then of course we do our volunteer appreciation things and stuff like that that's added to it. But if they're big shoppers, they really like those discounts and the added 10% off, and then being able to consign as well. Those are
That's
the big
great. Okay. So Vinny, what about you? Share about the Marine
Yeah.
Gift Shop.
So we actually, ours is based off of the hours that they do. So if they do and levels that they hit. So level 1, if they hit that, they get an automatic 15% off of their whole purchase, off of one purchase. If they do 16 hours or more a month, and that's going to be a level 2, they're going to get it's 15% off of all of their purchases for that month. No, that's 15% off of one purchase. 25% off of one item, and then hold privileges for the month. And those are what really helps us out the best, is because when we have our big opening, sometimes our line can be around the corner and it could be about an hour to even get into the store. So some volunteers love getting that incentive. And then our last one, we usually call them an associate, and that's going to be as long as they give pretty much a Saturday a month and work a full Saturday, they get 15% off of their whole purchases for the entire month, 25% off of one item, and then the hold privileges, which is super important. And then also we do volunteer appreciation parties twice a year. We do little volunteer outings, and little snacks and everything that we can offer for them every single day.
Vinny, a question.
Oh, go ahead.
Okay. So those are calculated each month and then reset. Is that how those tiers work? And could you explain that a little bit more? And then what do you use to calculate those hours and track them? Thank you.
Yes. Yeah. So yes, we actually do. Those hours are calculated from the beginning of the month to the last day of the month, and then they reset every single month. The system that we use is a very, very old system on a computer that I do not know how to update. I think it's called like Easy Time Clocking or something like that. I'm not 100% sure, but I can get back to you, Aaron, on that one. But yeah, so they reset every single month, and they just have to hit their minimum hours in order to get those incentives and everything. And trust me, there's people in there that are like, I am 3 hours away from getting my whole privileges. I need to come in. So that's a little bit. Did I answer your question, Aaron?
Yes, it did. Thanks, Vinny.
Perfect.
And I can attest to that I'd work some more hours so that I could have those hold privileges for, when the Thailand shipment came in or whatever it was. But no, thanks for sharing. So Kelly, do you have any additional incentives that you offer or things that really work for your volunteers?
So we do, they have to work 3 hours. For every 3 hours they work, they get the benefits is what it is. So the benefits, and they have to work 9 to 12. That's, it's been a struggle to get them to work. So to not just like spend the day doing their own because we are consignments as well. So it's been a little bit of a struggle, and I think we're finally pretty much there where they know from 9 to 12, none of their own stuff, put it away. You're here to volunteer. I use the pharmacy a lot as an example because those poor people that volunteer at the pharmacy, they don't get a break, they don't get a drink, they don't go to the bathroom. I mean, they don't, and we're not like that, but they definitely need to be, we need them there for a reason. And those 3 hours they need to work. So once they do their 3 hours, if they do it twice in a week, they get the same benefits again. So we take 12 items from consigners a day. They can do 25. So they can consign 25 hours a day, 25 items a day instead of 12. Hold on, I'm just going back to my notes here. They can, we do have a Christmas party. We have Volunteer Appreciation Week. They're allowed to bring in many times. We have a do not take list every Monday that goes out that I send out to all the consigners. And there are times that I'll open up things off that list just for the volunteers and say, okay, this week we're not taking shoes, but you guys can bring in shoes or whatever. So we do that. That's a benefit. They get 75% instead of 70% if they're a volunteer. And if they're on the spouses club as well, they get 80%. So we get a handful of folks that'll join the spouses club to get the 80% instead of the 75%. They do get a birthday cupcake or a birthday cookie on their birthday. I do it once a month. And so anybody that had a birthday that month gets a cookie, or we do the Cheryl's cookies because they're individually wrapped and you can freeze them. So that's been a great hit on that. Let me see. I think that's pretty much all that I have for what they, I mean, they get little things, but those are the big things are the extra things they can consign and the 75 or 80%.
Okay. And Stacy, do you have any other experience to add? Oh, you're muted.
Sorry, I don't have much to contribute there, just because I've been away from Bragg now for a few years. But, you know, Bragg at the time, we were very big into just installation recognition, you know, so we did do a lot of that, you know, putting our volunteers in for the, you know, Iron Mike Award, or, you know, just documenting their hours that way. And we did do like recognition or volunteer appreciation luncheon type thing within the store. So, but I don't remember if we offered a percentage off, honestly. We probably did, but I don't have the details. And I look back, I don't even see it in the SOP. So that makes me wonder if they actually do that still. So.
No, that's fine. So
I have one more thing to add, actually. So we actually, talking about recognition, we collect all of the hours and we submit those to MCCS at the end of the year for the Presidential Volunteer Service Award. So we actually usually have anywhere between 15 to 20 volunteers in the store that achieve over 100 hours for the year to be able to get that award. And it's really cool because the last few years, they unfortunately haven't been able to do the award ceremony. But when COVID's not around, we do an award ceremony where they go up on stage, and I believe somebody from base is there to like recognize them and call them up and tell them, you know, how proud they are. So it's a really cool event. But I know that we work with MCCS really well on collecting those hours and making sure that they get recognized for those hours for the year.
Yeah, I was going to bring that up. I don't know, do the rest of you, your thrift and gift shops, do you do that as well? Because any I think 501c3 can be a certifying organization, so you can apply for it if you aren't already. But I think a lot of us fall under like MCCS is. I know when I was there in Okie, it was anybody who volunteered on the base, you could submit the hours to that volunteer coordinator. They had the system set up, and I believe the Army is a little bit. They take care of their volunteers in a separate way, whether you're eligible for that as well. I know here with the council, we are trying to track our own volunteer hours as well so that we can be eligible for these awards. I'm curious, with these other thrift and gift shops, do you guys have experience with it? Are you doing that as well for your volunteers?
We we'll print a certificate from the thrift shop in Okinawa. We'll print your hours for you to take back to National Junior Honor Society or whatever, but I love the idea of it being automatic, that the shop gives it to MCCS and people don't have to ask for it. That's a fabulous idea.
Well, and I think it also, I mean, back to Vinny talking about how those positions translate back to other positions, you know, in the future. If you're building your resume, you certainly can go back and say, well, here's my documentation. This entire year that I was stationed here, I was volunteering regularly through this, this organization. And here's the documentation showing that.
Yeah, absolutely. And ours, this is Kelly. For ours, we have the volunteers log their hours in a binder, and we have the papers all ready for them per month. And then they cumulatively add up their hours for each month. And then at the end of the year, someone totals all those hours. And then we give them over, we nominate someone to be our volunteer of the year. Of course, only one person can get that. I mean, they can only get that once in their lifetime, but we usually have someone every year get it. The Air Force is a little bit, at the Academy, it's a little smaller, so it's not like a Fort Bragg or one of these huge bases, but we do track their hours, and we do put it in for recognition, and that's how we do their hours, and that's how they're recognized. Unfortunately, the Air Force Academy doesn't do the big luncheons that I'm used to as an Army spouse, but they just come into our place of establishment. We'll have a cake and we'll have all the days of the week come and recognize this person, but that's how the hours work for us and how they're recognized.
Well, and you may be able to become a certifying organization and certify your own hours so that they can be eligible for the Presidential Volunteer Service Award. Because it is, like Stacy said, it's something you could be putting on your resume. I'm a big proponent of that. I have that on my resume. It does help, validate all the work that you do as a volunteer, especially if, like, Vinny has the titles for all of his positions at his gift shop. It makes it really, legitimizes the work you're doing. I'm a huge proponent of that. I know I personally filled my resume with a lot of volunteer work to get, my current employment. So,
and I think too, one of the big things that we do too is, I've been there for a while. So any volunteer that does leave and they want to add me as a reference for a resume, I can go ahead and speak back to what they have done in the gift shop and where their, qualities lie and everything like that. So I think that's super important to also offer to any volunteers that are kind of leaving the gift shop at that time.
Tracy, to add on to that too, do you guys all have your shops? Do they have pages on LinkedIn? Because there's, we featured that in our last newsletter. One way to professionalize your organization is have an account on LinkedIn, and then you can have all your volunteers put down in their LinkedIn account that they are an employee at that shop, and then they can put their title, and then you can be endorsing them and supporting them on the skills that they have. Helps with networking. I'm curious, do you guys, as Thrift and gift shops, are they on the LinkedIn at all?
I'll have to check on that one.
No, we are not.
No, that's a good idea, though. I like it.
Hey, Tracy, we
Yes.
have a question in the chat.
Sure.
Somebody just wanted to know if anybody uses special software. I heard Kelly say they have a binder, and Vinny says they had something that he doesn't know how to use, but I didn't know if anybody knew of another sort of volunteer tracking system.
So we did we used Square, and I don't know just for inventory, but you can, depending on how you're using the Square management software, you can also use it for hours, tracking hours. So
We have a digital time clock. So just kind of like, the staff doesn't use it. It was the old staff time clock, but it's a digital time clock. So they have time cards and they punch in and out every month. And then at the end of every month, their hours go into the VMIS system. So it gets tracked with the military as well. So.
And Tracy, I'll get you my name later, and if you want to post it somewhere, you're more than welcome to. But I know it's an old system, and they have done updates to it, but we don't have the updating one. It's just kind of one of they clock in and clock out, and it automatically tracks all their hours.
Oh, there we go. Cindy Harp threw in there time clock.
I'll get back to you too. The Thrift Shop uses a Google-based system which connects. You can connect it to which organization you want to donate your hours. Are you representing the high school, or are you representing your command, or that type of thing. And then I'm also with Navy Marine Corps Relief Society, and they use VicNet, which is beautiful. I'm sure it's kind of expensive, but it is lovely.
Aaron, what was it called?
VicNet, VICNET.
Okay, thanks for that, Rec. Well, I think in going with the conversation on software, I know inventory is a big deal, and the register. So I wonder if there's certain software that each of you have found helpful or that you use in the shop. I know when I was at the Marine Gift Shop, we switched because of cost, all that type of thing. And I think that things are probably different with the inventory for gift shops and thrift shops. So we may have to separate that. But maybe Vinny, I'll throw it on you. What are you guys using now in the shop for inventory and running the register?
So we actually use ShopKeep, and we've been using that for the last 3 years. It tracks all of our inventory. We're able to upload any product, put the cost that we bought things at, quantities. We can add vendors to it so they can have their own vendor area. But it's made for retail stores, and the cost is the cost was kind of expensive when we first got it. It was around like $4,500, but every year it does cost us $2,100 in order to like keep that system going. But we have found that it is the best system to run our business properly and keep track of all of our inventory properly as well.
That's great. So Kelly, what do you guys use for your inventory? Oh, you're muted.
Hear me?
Yes.
Okay. We use Consign Pro. We use that in Washington as well. So I was very used to it when we moved here. You know, you're going to find people complain about any of the systems, but quite honestly, it's been fantastic for us. I know it is not nearly as expensive, Vinny, as what you just described. I think we pay a few $100s a year to keep it up. We can do remote entry. So that's another, now that I just said that, that's another benefit for volunteers is volunteers only can remotely put their stuff in the night before they come to work. And then I print the tickets out when I get there in the morning and they can just tag their stuff. So, and we also do something called My Resale Web, which I don't know if you've all heard about, but it's part of Consign Pro. And My Resale Web, every customer tracks their own items that sold that day that are still available, that have been damaged out, and then how much their check will be at the end of the month and what to expect. So Consign Pro has been a winner for us, and they have great customer support. So we love Consign Pro.
Angie, did you find the same do you use Consign Pro?
No, I do not use Consign Pro. We used it's Liberty for consignment in the resale world. And I love it. It tracks everything really, really well. I mean, it has a timestamp and a name for anything that is ever done inside of that system. So there's no question on whatever happens. It's really easy to track everything and print our reports and print our tags and everything else. Now, it is also a little bit pricey. I think it's around $2,000 a year, but that includes I think it's like 48,000 tags and tech support and everything with it. So it includes a lot. So we don't really have to worry with updates or, upkeep of it. It's all inclusive where that's concerned, but it's super user friendly and very, very good as far as keeping up with stuff. You can customize reports. It comes with, already done reports that are already kind of built into the system, but you can customize your own too if you're wanting to see certain parameters that aren't there.
That's helpful. And we'll make sure we get the list of all these different recommendations and have it available to everybody who's on the call and for our members. So in case anybody's missing it. Stacy, do you remember what you guys used at Fort Bragg?
Well, we switched. They were initially, when I took over, they were still writing everything by hand. So we switched and we went to Square. And at the time I just researched, we were trying to find the most economical, solution for trying to get everything, online. And I think that they're probably still using Square. Another system that I'm familiar with that because I currently now I do own my own store and consign actually out of a location here in Columbus, Georgia. And they use a program called Consigner Access, and that's through Traxia, which I like. It's similar. It sounds very similar to the programs that the thrift store people were mentioning, that they can access, consigners can access it beforehand. And so that when I get to the shop, I can just print my labels for the merchandise that I'm bringing in. So, and I can see my report. I can see where I am, anytime, and day by day, I can look throughout the day to see how I'm doing, with sales, which is kind of nice for people who are consigning. That's one thing. I think when you have consigners, this would be something I'm interested in finding out from the thrift stores. I felt as a gift shop that was consigning, we were paying quarterly, and I don't know that that is really very appealing to consigners. I think they would like to get paid more frequently, but I'm curious to know how you all pay your consigners. do they get paid monthly, or is it by quarters? Or
I can tell you that at the Air Force Academy, we pay monthly, and they
Okay.
only get a check, and we put the parameters of $10 and over. So if their check is $9.50, then it stays in their account. They can
Sure.
always use the money in the store, but we never give it
Right.
out unless they close their account completely. Then they get the cash out of there. But if it's a month, if it, they sell something that hits 10, then a check will be generated, but they're generated after the last day of the month, and then we pay the first week of the next month.
Yeah,
Right.
we also pay monthly the same. We pay by the 5th of every month. But we don't have a parameter of $10. We go ahead and clear those accounts out. However, a lot of people take advantage of using their money before it gets printed out as a store credit, because you can do that
Sure.
as well. So as your account has a credit, you can use that to make purchases. So a lot of them do that, which helps us because then we're not
Right.
writing checks.
Right. Which is always helpful. Yeah.
And I know, Erin, you're on here with the thrift shop. Do you guys consign there?
No, we don't consign at all.
Okay. And what software, like inventory tracking software, do you use?
We have none. Or
Mm.
whatever like gets on the floor, goes to the trash, or donations close. It turns over really rapidly, so it's not worth it to track it.
Gotcha. Yeah,
For
I
us at
know
the
that's.
gift,
Go ahead.
go ahead. So sorry, for us at the gift shop, we don't consign, but we do have vendors that we do allow in the store. So it's kind of like consigning. They do drop off their product and we sell it throughout the month. And at the end of the month, we will either deposit it into their checking account or write them out a check, depending on if they're a local vendor. And we do take a percentage of their sales monthly from them, but we give them a once a month check.
Well, that, kind of circling back around, I jumped ahead to the volunteers, and really, I think every store has some paid employees. So I'm curious to know, it may differ between thrift and gift shops, on how many paid employees you have. How do you work that? And do you have a financial accountant that then pays the employees, or is it somebody if it's a spouse board that oversees and governs the shop, who takes care of that? I know, Vinny, I'll throw it to you because I know that you have a meeting that you're having to run to, but how do you guys work there?
Yes, so we have a total of 4 paid staff members that are in the store. That is going to be myself. We have a inventory/personnel manager. I have a sales floor manager, and I have a marketing manager. We also do have a contract position, which is going to be my accountant, and she is only required to be there maybe 1 day a week to kind of come grab all of the material, but most of the work is done remotely, and she pays all of my staff, myself, takes care of all of the bills, anything that has to do with financial work, she takes care of. So I have a total of 5 paid staff members in the store, and the rest are all volunteers.
So the contracted accountant then takes care of any auditing paperwork stuff that you have to file with the IRS and the installation.
Yes, so she takes care of all of the paperwork, insurance, the 1099, I think it is, a yearly, all the audits, anything that has to get taken care of. She manages all of that and takes care of it for the store.
And then who pays her?
So her check goes through, we have to write it out monthly, and it has to be written out by myself and the president of our board.
Okay.
That's helpful. Kelly, how do you work it at your shop? How many employees do you have?
Yes, we also have 4 paid employees. Myself, the assistant manager / cashier, we promoted her to assistant manager, but she's also the cashier, our bookkeeper, and our donation specialist. The bookkeeper works remotely as well. She comes in about once a week, like Vinny said, and picks up everything. Everything's paid through QuickBooks. So she's salary, I'm salary, and the other 2 are hourly, and we track them through timesheets. They just sign, the two hourlies sign, and then I sign off on them every day. And then the bookkeeper will grab that at the end of the month to pay them. So they're paid, we're just all paid through QuickBooks, and we goes right into our account. You had another question here.
Well, and so since you fall underneath the spouse organization, does somebody oversee the pay, the money to and from as paid employees? Is there any involvement there?
So no, there's no involvement there at all. The only thing that they do see is every month the treasurers for the Spouses Club. So the welfare treasurer, the thrift shop falls under there, she has a thrift shop budget that also gets put in separately, and it says each of us separated out and then what the pay was. So it's very transparent to everybody.
But there's no responsibility on the spouse club in terms of how you run the shop. So you have paid staff that are overseeing the books.
That is correct. Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
So I
and
think
then
that
we
there's
probably have about 20 to 25 volunteers at any given time as well.
Okay. Angie, what about you? How many paid employees? And
we have, I don't know how big the other stores are that are on here, but for us, we have a pretty large operating budget. Our store brings in like 350,000 plus a year. So we have 6 to 7 employees that are paid. And what we kind of do, this kind of backtracks just slightly, but for me as a manager, I am the liaison between the board and the store. So I'm the retail chairperson on the board. So I'm there to help with making those budgets based off of what all my numbers were a year. We do have an accountant that obviously double checks me and everything I do. So all my reports every month go to her. But then we have me, we have a team leader, a cashier, we have a floor associate to keep the floor going, a donations clerk, and we have a data entry as well.
All as paid staff. Okay.
All as paid staff. Yes, ma'am.
And then I can't remember, does your thrift shop fall underneath a spouse club?
Yes, we fall under the Spouses Club. Mm-hmm.
That's okay. Stacy, do you remember? I know you're on mute.
I was just looking back, but our board treasurer was our treasurer in for the store. But I would prepare the monthly report. You know, each month we would report to the board, and then our treasurer was doing the quarterly taxes. And then we would do our biannual and annual reports to the board.
And Erin, I don't want to throw you out there if you want to chime in at all or.
Sure. We have a standalone board that's not affiliated with any organization. It, I think, might have at one time been the enlisted club, but enlisted spouses. But now it's a standalone board that oversees the manager, the accountant. You have an assistant manager, and then 4 or 5 cashiers / donation receivers, sorters, people. The part of our mission is to render employment to people on island too. That's part of our goals. So we try to make sure that we have a number of paid positions, and the board oversees the bonuses, the pay structure, and the giving, the philanthropy, makes those decisions. So whereas the manager then runs the store on a day-to-day basis. The accountant is part-time, but everybody is hourly paid.
I should probably touch on that too. All of the staff is hourly paid except for our manager and team leader. They're salaried, and we use ADP for time tracking and asking for paid time off, things like that if we have that. And the manager is the one who runs payroll through ADP. So we run payroll we get paid every 2 weeks. And sorry, I'm moving in a car now. So, and that's how we kind of do that. Of course, like I said before, the board is the one who comes up with the budgets for everything, but it's up to the manager to make sure that everyone falls within that budget. And along with the budget means that they've also approved the hours for each position that we have available in the shop.
Okay. Well, I know we're coming towards the end of the top of the hour. We've got about 5 minutes left. Carolyn, I don't know. I haven't really been monitoring the chat too much. I don't know if there's other questions that people want to try and get in before we close out. Is there anything that we've missed and not covered?
Most of the chat things are people sharing their experience that they have in their shop, talking about volunteers and sales and volunteer management softwares that they use and tracking systems. I don't see any other questions in the chat. So if anybody has one, if they can raise their hand, I can make your mic work, I think.
And, you know, following this chat, we can kind of put together all the resources that people are, you know, pooling together here. Our goal also is to have a template, an SOP template. But as you know, I mean, there's a lot of differences between thrift and gift shops. And then obviously every service is very different. You're going to have different regulations that you have to fulfill with your installation, all that stuff. So we've been trying to essentially crowdsource different SOPs, kind of come up with a template. So it's going to kind of prompt you to think things through, like, oh, maybe we do need to add that in. So you can have some best practices that we're doing all across the world. I mean, I think one of the best practices is having a paid accountant that manages the finances. I've seen that in other organizations where the spouse club, a volunteer who's not necessarily a trained, you know, financial accountant, is one overseeing some really big numbers. So that is a lot of liability. I know that there's so much more. Let's see, and I see the chat's going. So Carolyn, you interrupt me if there are other things.
So somebody said we are just starting a new thrift shop. Uh-oh, it moved as I was reading it. Okay, we're starting a new thrift shop. Any major tips for first timers? That's a hard one, huh?
Yeah, that is.
Yeah.
I would recommend you start with a good consigning software. If you're going to decide if you're going to take consigners versus just taking donations, if you start the way you want to move forward, it'll be easier, I think.
Yeah, and I also I think that's, Carolyn, that's number one. But also, if you're taking consigners, you know, start your consignments, like if you want to give them 60% and you take 40, or don't start real high, because taking things away is the hardest thing. So start lower and then add on if you can, or make things higher. It'll only make them happy instead of not happy. So I would always start with that. Like, just don't try to be the best one out there and beat everybody in different consignment. You know, hey, we're going to give you 80% and we're only going to take 20. Remember what your mission is. All of our mission should be to give back to the community, no matter where you're located right now, and back to scholarships and back to welfare requests. So, you know, remember that number one is your mission. And if you are going to start a new thrift shop, if it's consignments too, to be very, very careful when you first start on not giving them the world.
Yeah, that's very good advice. I also have a comment from Rebecca. She wants to know if people are willing to share their Facebook page for this thrift shop so that she can see what they look like and compare and gain inspiration from them.
Yeah, that would be great to share. One, I wanted to get into seeing how everybody stays current and relevant and attracts the shoppers too, like not just the volunteers, but I have to give a shout out to the Marine Gift Shop again. That's where my experience is, but this happened after I left the island. But Vinny or whoever had these amazing angel wings painted on the side of this ugly, ugly government building that the shop is in. And it's now a destination place that people go to have their pictures taken, and then they have to go in and shop. So I'm curious, and I know we're out of time, but maybe we throw things in the chat, or we can start, you know, sharing ideas of how you stay current and relevant and bring people to you and wanting to come to shop. I wonder if the thrift shops are, like, I know I have teenagers and they go out and thrift. They don't even want to go to the retail stores anymore. They go and thrift, and that's that's social for them. So I'm wondering if you guys have an uptick in that just from teenagers alone right now.
We absolutely do. Yeah, we had a very a lot of retirees, to include myself, at the Air Force Academy thrift shop, or everywhere near there. We are right next to the pharmacy, so we get a lot of older folks that come in, and we have noticed in the past couple of years that, yeah, we're getting a lot of the younger ones now as well. So you're right. That's actually happening, Tracy.
Well, that's so fun.
We
Well,
have
go ahead.
The younger ones tend to like having a green reuse philosophy, and so I find, middle schoolers are still going to the mall, but yes, we get a lot of high schoolers who are looking through the thrift shop. And we probably should be reaching out to them more. We don't have a social marketing person. We're kind of hoping to develop that. But right now we rely on volunteers to take snapshots and send them out on Facebook and try to pull in people.
Yeah, I think tap into those teenagers. Well, I think we're out of time. I really enjoyed this discussion. I feel like we could probably go on for hours more. I think we're just like touching the surface on gift and thrift shops. We'd love feedback. So jump in our Facebook group or email us if you have questions or topics in the future that you really want us to cover. We're always looking for ideas so we can have these interactive chats. It was really super helpful. I really appreciate Kelly and Aaron, you jumping in, Vinny, Stacy, and Angie, wherever you went on my screen. I don't see you now, but really great discussion, and I appreciate your time.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Caroline. Thanks so much, everybody.
Thank you.
Thanks for pulling us all together, Tracy.
Yeah, so fun to see you all across the world.
Bye.
All right.
Bye.
Thank you.
Bye, everyone.
Bye-bye.